Pledge of allegiance to our flag. Our Father, who art in heaven, as a body we congregate in this council chambers for the betterment of our fellow citizens, lead us that we may do all things well. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Morton?
Present.
Mr. Stuchel?
Present.
Mr. Edwards?
Present.
Ms. Hausfeld? Here. Mr. Schulmeyer?
Present.
Mr. Culbertson?
Here.
Mr. Estep?
Present.
Let the record show that 7 members are present. No members are absent. Members of council, what is your pleasure on the reading of the last minutes?
Mr. President,
Mr. Schulmeyer.
make a motion that we dispense with the reading of the minutes and accept as noted.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Schulmeyer, second by Mr. Estep to dispense with the reading of the last minutes. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Members of council, are there any errors or corrections to the minutes as submitted? If not, the minutes will stand as submitted. This time we will move to reports of city officials. Mayor, Mr. Stuchel.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you probably heard in my most recent call command that our new system to access the pavilion is now operational, we have installed a key card system that will grant access daily from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. I had originally announced that the cards would be $10 each, but after careful discussion and reconsideration to some residents' concerns, each household will receive one complimentary access card. But if any additional cards are needed in that household, then it would be $10 to receive additional copies. We are excited to be able to offer this convenience to our residents year-round and want to protect the substantial investment that we have made in this wonderful facility. If anyone is interested in a card, please come and see the village clerk so that she can get you registered. And if anyone registered today and paid their $10, they will be refunded. Lastly, the Village of St. Bernard received a $200,000 grant for the final acquisition of 4901 Vine Street, which is the former First State Bank building, through the Hamilton County Community Revitalization Program. This acquisition will ensure the progression of a critical community project and allow for the bidding process for demolition of the building to proceed immediately. The demolition of the remaining shopping center structure will occur in the second phase upon the relocation of the final tenant. And we are working the CIC to try to get this resolved so that we can move forward with the redevelopment of our city center. Thank you. That concludes my report. And just as a reminder, we do have our next CIC meeting that will be held on Tuesday at 6 p.m. here in City Hall Council Chambers. Thank you.
Thank you. Auditor, Ms. Brickway.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 2 things for tonight's meeting. The first one being we've had some rather large bills come up, which you voted on, so you know, but I had to cash in a $1.5 million from the reserves. It's for the fire truck and different road repairs and things, but I did want to give a heads up on that, but that was already voted on by council to do. Second on the agenda is ordinance number 27. Okay. This ordinance transfers $2 million with $100,000 going into the swimming pool cash account, $600,000 going into the master plan cash account, $300,000 into capital improvement cash account, $300,000 into general bond cash account, and $700,000 into employee health cash account. It also asks for the additional appropriation of 0701 capital improvements of $200,000. That is what part of the other ordinance that you're approving to demo the property, purchase and demo the property, and 5107 employee health plan for $550,000. Are there any questions? Okay, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Director Law, Ms. Van Volkenburg.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report.
Thank you. Treasurer, Mr. Ungrove.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening I have the statements for last month ending July 31st for the Star of Ohio. Our total there at the end of the month is $11,401,448.14, and that includes $1 million of withdrawals during that time frame. Thank you.
Thank you. Safety and Service Director, Mr. Wardman.
Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to take a moment to recognize the fire department for their quick and effective response to a structure fire in the village last night. Because of their effective response, the structure suffered minimal damage and they prevented a situation that could have been much worse. Secondly, I hope residents have noticed that the steel plate that had been in the intersection of Vine and Mitchell is now gone and the intersection has been repaired. I know that in my short time here, I've had people call me, and actually a couple people came into the village offices to ask about it, so hopefully they'll notice that that has now been taken care of. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that we had a bid opening for repaving work on June Street in the industrial area of the village this morning, and the preliminary schedule for that project has it beginning in October. I believe there's some legislation that will be before council tonight related to that project. And then finally, I want to congratulate local business I Am Coffee for their recognition in Cincy Magazine as best coffee meeting location in the area. I thought that was neat. So that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Tax Administrator, Ms. Helms.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just had a quick reminder that the 2023 tax returns, anybody that had a federal extension, those are due by October 15th of 2024. Currently, there are almost 1,000 St. Bernard residents who have not filed their 2023 tax return. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. We'll move to reports of standing committees. Finance, Mr. Morton.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's nothing to report regarding the Finance Committee at this time. However, in other news, the next Community Connect will be held at the St. Bernard Library branch on September 4th from 6 to 7 p.m. As always, all of those who live or work in the village are encouraged to attend to share their concerns, ideas, and celebrations. I also would like to thank Michelle Jones and the rest of the We Thrive team for teaming up to complete the pedestrian safety and accessibility audit. With their help, we have now broadened its scope to include parks and other public spaces. If you would like to support this initiative to make our village's spaces safer and more accessible, please feel free to reach out to me via email or text. Of course, thank you to those who have already signed up to volunteer. You all should have received a text or email with more information. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Service, Mr. Stugel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the waste collection fees for the month of June 2024. $23,362.51 was remitted to the village. For the month of July 2024, the service department had 24 dump trucks placed at residents, 25 dumpsters placed at residents, 225 special pickups from residents, 187.49 tons of garbage taken to landfill, 24.9 tons of recycling material collected, 160 pounds of scrap aluminum collected, 2 carburetors collected, 6,300 pounds of scrap metal collected, and 248 tires collected. On Wednesday, September 18th, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. will be our hazardous waste collection day down at the Service Department in partnership with Hamilton County Resource. Unlike last year, they will not be collecting latex-based paint, but items that will be accepted are pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers, solvents, thinners, lead paint, oil-based paints, oil-based stains, fluorescent tubes, cleaners, pool chemicals, driveway sealers, mercury tar, thermostats, thermometers, oxygen cylinders and tanks, refrigerant cylinders and tanks, and adhesive foam cylinders. After dropping off your hazardous waste, please provide your email to the staff from Hamilton County Resource to participate in a brief survey. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Public improvements, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. President. There was no need for a Public Improvement Committee meeting, but I would like to thank the St. Bernard Ludlow Grove Society for yet another enjoyable program. The subject of this month's program was Civil War love letters between a young married couple, James and Lydia Rhodes. Even though they had little formal education, their numerous letters gave us a unique insight into the time they lived. I would encourage anyone to attend the monthly meeting on the third Monday of each month at 7 p.m. in the main hall of the municipal building. I would also like to thank our public library for its service to our community. The new school year has begun, and the library has new programs to serve our kids. From 2:45 to 3:45, the library is serving a free after-school snack. The snack needs to be eaten at the library. They also have a staff person to assist in K through 8 with their homework from 2:30 to 5:30, Monday through Friday. And there's also a resource called Homework Help Now to give online assistance to students K through adult with expert help in numerous skill building programs. The library has even more youth programs Monday through Friday. Please contact them for details. Thank you, Mr. President. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Safety, Ms. Hausfeld.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the police activity report for last month. For the month of July, the police department had 689 calls for service, resulting in 559 contacts. There were an additional 373 other services details that were not necessarily called in by the public. These calls for service included 58 total criminal offenses and resulted in 93 criminal arrests, including 7 OVIs, 54 traffic citations, including 14 for speed, as well as 79 traffic warnings, including 17 for speed. They responded to 19 accidents. Of those accidents, 4 involved injuries. And as far as news and notes from the police department, they wanted me to remind the public that they are having their annual Police and Fire Benevolent Steak Fry is rapidly approaching. It will be held Friday, September 13th at the Vine Street Park. As a special addition to this year's event, there will be a band to add to the festivities. Everyone is encouraged to get their tickets in advance as this event will more than likely sell out. Tickets are $20 each and being sold by the officers of each department. Tickets can also be purchased at the Safety Center. Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Laws, contracts, and claims, Mr. Schultmeyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. The last Laws, Contracts, and Claims meeting was held Tuesday, August 20th, 7 p.m. in council chambers. The agenda was short and long-term rentals and vacant properties. The outcome of the meeting is that for the next committee of the whole, we plan on having language to put on the table for the short and long-term rentals, and for our next meeting, which will be held, our next Laws, Contracts, and Claims meeting, which will be held on 9/11 at 7 p.m. in council chambers. We should finalize that and then also be reviewing new language for vacant properties. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Marketing, Mr. Culbertson.
Thanks, Mr. President. On Friday, August 30th, the Garden Club will be hosting a Sunset in the Garden party at 7:30 p.m. at the community garden. All are welcome to attend. Please bring a chair, your drinks of choice, and a dish to share. On Monday, September 2nd, after the pool closes to residents for the season, there will be a dog swim at the Aquatic Center from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. On September 10th, there will be a Garden Club meeting at the Lower Level City Hall from 6 to 7 p.m. On that same night, will be the next We Thrive meeting from 7 to 8 p.m. in the main level of the municipal building. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Business and Industry, Mr. Estep.
Thank you, Mr. President. There is no business and industry meeting, but we are making a lot of progress with our Laws, Contracts, and Claims Committee. I'd like to thank Mr. Wordman for his quick response and his help for the situation about the tree limb falling through the part of the house up on Delmar. The first 5 years after we lost Allison, we had a fundraiser at the park for Children's Hospital. We raised over $160,000 the first 5 years, and we took a year off. This year, we're taking it again to the park, September 14th, and it's called Heart to Heart as usual. We have a small band featuring the James duo. He's a OBGYN down at Christ Hospital. He's in the band. It's called the James duo, and that tells you why. But it's from 6 to 11, September 14th. This year, the funds will go to the Ronald McDonald House, which is somewhat affiliated with Children's Hospital, a place that does so many good things for so many people. It's a $10 donation at the gate. That includes your grilled food, catered by Jack's Catering. You bring your own beverages. To donate a basket or an item to be raffled off, call John, 307-3788, naturally 513, or Patty at 513-602-5691. We just had a late donation this week. It's for a week in condo in Destin. That'll be our big raffle this year. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. The Committee of the Whole was sent out by Council Clerk Ms. Stegman. At this time, Clerk, will you please give the third reading of ordinance number 19, 2024?
Ordinance number 19, 2024, amending section 121.01 of the St. Bernard Codified Ordinances regarding councilperson attendance at meetings salary reduction, vacation of office, and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the third reading. What is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Mr. Schultmeyer.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance number 19, 2024.
Seconded.
Motion by Mr. Schultmeyer, second by Mr. Morton to adopt ordinance number 19, 2024. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Morton?
Aye.
Mr. Stuchel?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
No.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Estep?
Aye.
Six ayes, 1 nay. Motion carries. Ordinance number 19, 2024 is adopted as read. Clerk, will you please give the third reading of ordinance number 20, 2024?
Ordinance number 20, 2024, amending section 905.03 of the St. Bernard Codified Ordinances regarding weed and litter removal.
Members of council, you've heard the third reading of ordinance number 20. What is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Mr. Schultmeyer.
I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 20, 2024.
Seconded.
Motion by Mr. Schultmeyer, seconded by Mr. Morton to adopt ordinance number 20, 2024. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Morton?
Aye.
Mr. Stuchel?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Estep?
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Oops. Ordinance number 20, 2024 is adopted as read. Clerk, will you please give the third reading of ordinance number 21, 2024?
Ordinance number 21, 2024, amending section 905.05 of the St. Bernard Codified Ordinances regarding weed and litter removal.
Members of council, you've heard the third reading of ordinance number 21, 2024. What is your pleasure? What is your, to have a motion to adopt ordinance 21, 2024?
Mr. President,
Mr. Schultmeyer.
I make a motion that
Adopt, I messed up.
to adopt ordinance number 21, 2024.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Schultmeyer, seconded by Mr. Estep to adopt ordinance number 21, 2024. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Morton?
Aye.
Mr. Stuchel?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Culbertson? Mr. Estep?
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Ordinance number 21, 2024 is adopted as read. Clerk, will you please give the second reading of ordinance number 22, 2024?
Ordinance number 22, 2024, amending section 905.04 of the St. Bernard Codified Ordinances, abatement of violations of chapter 905 of the Codified Ordinances.
Members of council, I will entertain a motion to suspend with the third reading of ordinance 22, 2024.
Mr. President,
Mr. Schultmeyer.
I make a motion that we suspend with the third reading of ordinance number 22, 2024.
I second.
Motion by Mr. Schultmeyer, second by Mr. Estep to suspend with the third reading of ordinance 22, 2024. Are there any remarks? Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council on ordinance 22? If not, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. Morton?
Aye.
Mr. Stuchel?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Culbertson? Mr. Estep?
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Mr. Schultmeyer.
make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 22, 2024.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schultmeyer, seconded by Mr. Estep to adopt ordinance 22, 2024. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Morton?
Aye.
Mr. Stuchel?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Culbertson? Mr. Estep?
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Ordinance number 22, 2024 is adopted as read. Clerk, will you please give the first reading of ordinance 25, 2024?
Ordinance number 25, 2024, an ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as parts of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of St. Bernard, Ohio, revising the traffic and general offenses codes to comply with state law and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 25, 2024. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Mr. Schultmeyer.
I'd like to make a motion that we suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance number 25, 2024.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Schultmeyer, seconded by Mr. Estep to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance 25, 2024. Are there any remarks? If not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council on ordinance 25? If not, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. Morton?
Aye.
Mr. Stuchel?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer? Mr. Culbertson? Mr. Estep?
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Mr. Schultmeyer.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 25, 2024.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Motion by Mr. Schultmeyer, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to adopt ordinance number 25, 2024. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Morton?
Aye.
Mr. Stuchel?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Estep?
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Ordinance 25, 2024 is adopted as read. Clerk, will you please give the first reading of ordinance 26, 2024?
Ordinance number 26, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a joint agreement between the Board of County Commissioners, Hamilton County, Ohio, and the Village of St. Bernard, Ohio, to administer a community revitalization grant awarded for property redevelopment and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 26, 2024. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Mr. Schultmeyer.
make a motion to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance number 26, 2024.
I'll
Seconded.
second that, Mr. President.
Motion by Mr. Schultmeyer, second by Mr. Morton, to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance 26, 2024. Are there any remarks? Not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council on ordinance 26? Not, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. Morton?
Aye.
Mr. Stuchel?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Estep?
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Mr. Schultmeyer.
make a motion we adopt ordinance number 27, 2024. 26, sorry. Thanks, Jeff.
I'll second that.
2024.
Motion by Mr. Schultmeyer, second by Mr. Culbertson, to adopt ordinance number 26, 2024. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Morton?
Aye.
Mr. Stuchel?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Estep?
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Ordinance number 26, 2024 is adopted as read. Clerk, will you please give the first reading of ordinance 27, 2024?
Ordinance number 27, 2024, authorizing and directing the auditor to transfer funds and provide additional appropriations and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 27, 2024. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Mr. Schultmeyer.
make a motion to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance number 27, 2024.
I'll second.
A motion by Mr. Schultmeyer, second by Mr. Estep, to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance 27, 2024. Are there any remarks? If not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council on ordinance 27? If not, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. Morton?
Aye.
Mr. Stuchel?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Estep?
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Mr. Schultmeyer.
I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 27, 2024.
Seconded.
Motion by Mr. Schultmeyer, seconded by Mr. Morton, to adopt ordinance number 27, 2024. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Morton?
Aye.
Mr. Stuchel?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Estep?
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Ordinance number 27, 2024 is adopted as read. This time, while it was talked about, I will ask that we make a motion to place ordinance number 28, 2024 on the table this evening. This is the June Street renovation, correct, Mayor? Correct. We had talked about it, but so if I could have a motion to place this on the table.
Mr. President,
Mr. Morton.
I'd like to motion to place ordinance number 28, 2024 on the table.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Morton, second by Mr. Colbert, to place ordinance 28, 2024 on the table. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Clerk, will you give the first reading of ordinance 28, 2024?
Ordinance number 28, 2024, an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety and Service to enter into a contract with J.K. Muir Corporation and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance 28, 2024. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Mr. Schultmeyer.
I'll make a motion to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance number 28, 2024.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Schultmeyer, second by Mr. Estep, to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance 28, 2024. Are there any remarks? Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council on ordinance number 28? Not, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. Morton?
Aye.
Mr. Stuchel?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Estep?
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Mr. Schultmeyer.
I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 28, 2024.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Schultmeyer, seconded by Mr. Estep to adopt ordinance number 28, 2024. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Morton?
Aye.
Mr. Stuchel?
Aye.
Mr. Edwards?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
Aye.
Mr. Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Estep?
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Ordinance number 28, 2024 is adopted as read. All right. At this time, is there anyone on council that has anything under old business?
Yes, Mr. President.
Ms. Hausfeld?
I did bring it to Ms. Valerie's attention, and she's going to look into something on the ordinance that we voted on tonight. I was not allowed to comment on it earlier, but I did make the comment, does this take effect right away? Or since we are already in our term of office, if it takes effect the next election per se? And she is going to check into it for us, just so everybody knows. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else under old business? If not, does anyone on council have anything under new business? If not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council this evening? Please state your name and address for the record.
Nicole Klungel, 551 Church. Mr. Edwards, I wondered if I could renew my request for a public improvements meeting to discuss energy aggregation. I know you said you thought that might be the territory of the Laws, Contracts, and Claims Committee, but I fielded it to them, and they think it actually falls in public improvements first, and then may require Laws, Contracts, and Claims activity later in the process. So I was wondering if I could ask for a meeting on that.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with that. It'd be good to talk about it. I mean, when I looked at it, I actually looked at it on Forest Park has done it, some other places. To me, it was it said it was only saving like $150 a year with electric, and gas was actually better with Duke, and so there was no point of doing it. I actually talked to some former administrative people that no longer, well, they're former, they don't work here anymore, but they said they had tried it before and it was a mess. And my personal thing with Forest Park, they said anybody can opt out that they want to. I like the idea of people opting in if they want to, not having to opt out.
That's also possible.
But we could, we can have a public improvement committee meeting and discuss it. But that's my thoughts on it right now. But
Okay.
I'll be happy to talk to whoever wants to do it.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wishing to address council? If not, the next, I believe that's it, yep. Next committee of the whole will be Thursday, September 12th at 7 p.m. At this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culbertson.
make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Culbertson, second by Mr. Schultmeyer to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered.